Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly AI Yap, where I go over this week's news and just kind of talk about it, and it will go for like 20-30 minutes. And so this week, we obviously have the OpenAI news, right? They had their dev day, there's some cool stuff going on there, and I'll probably spend more time on OpenAI this week than I did last week. And after that, we had NVIDIA's new model and BFL's Flux 1.1 Pro, right? And so I think we'll just start with the OpenAI stuff, right? So OpenAI, they had a dev day, right? Where they talked about a bunch of new features coming out, like they talked about like voice output, so you can finally actually use voice on GPT-4, and it's actually really cool, right? Because they're the first people to actually offer like a voice API for their multimodal models, right? And so now you can actually feed in text and audio, and you can get text and audio out, and so now you're able to build apps on top of this, right? So say you're trying to build like a customer service agent, or even much simpler, just trying to build like a personal assistant for people, right? So you just like set it up, and then it's a personal assistant. You can just talk to it, and you can have audio input and audio output, and you can tell it to like make the sound of birds and whatnot. I haven't actually checked if they allow that, but like they've kind of set it up so that it's audio out. You can use it, and this is like the first people to actually use it, right? And so you can build your notebook LM now, right? So Google has Notebook LM. It's been around for a while, right? So I didn't talk about any of the podcasts, but like Notebook LM, it's good. You make you give it a bunch of information. You can make podcasts about it, right? You can build your own now. You can just sort of build your own Notebook LM, right? And so they've kind of set it up so that now the application space for a bunch of people has opened up, right? And so this is kind of the promise of multimodal output they had way back in the start of like when they actually announced it back in like April, May-ish. Like when they actually announced 4.0, they were just like, hey, we have multimodal out. We can do 3D model out. We can do, all of this stuff. And it's like cool, amazing. You can do all this cool stuff, but like nobody can use it. Clearly you guys aren't using it. And it's like amazing. It's over, right? And so now they've actually announced it. And I'm not real. I legitimately thought that they would never release it, but like clearly they did. And they were just stuck in safety training limbo for a very long time, which like, sure, makes sense for them, but like the fact that like if you look at just voice mode on the app, right, that had very early beta users like in April, May, and then they only fully released it now and I believe it was entirely due to safety training, because they released it, they realized, wait, hold on, this can impersonate people, and then they just stopped, right? And so you effectively just have like safety training delaying this by a few months, because like it's like you had like what, May, June, July, August, and now it's September. Now it's October, so give it like and also September. It took like 5 months. Like safety training has delayed these features by like 5 months, right? And so if you actually look at all of these different companies doing stuff, you can kind of see that like safety training is delaying stuff, because Llama 3.1 405B was supposed to be Llama 3 405B. It's just that also got delayed by a whole bunch of months because they were doing extra safety training. If you look at, say, when Chameleon, right, Meta Chameleon, that got delayed by a bunch of months because they were fine-tuning out the actual amount of, like, the image out, right? Because they had an image out, like, early fusion model. And they had to fine-tune that out because, they didn't want an image generator out, right? And so, and again, Meta is also, this week, they've released a video generator, and you also have the release of the segment anything model, SAM 2.1, but we'll get to that later. We'll get to Meta later. They keep doing cool stuff. But like, you now have effectively, you just have like safety delaying all of this stuff by like 5-6 months. And so if, for example, if OpenAI has like GPT-5, they're going to want to do extra safety training. But even if you assume it's going to take like 6 months, OpenAI will have, like, let's assume GPT-5 is AGI, right? Or whatever, right? The safety training will delay the publication of AGI by like 6 months, which is a long time. It's a very long time in this space, right? And so let's assume you're a group that doesn't do safety training, right? Let's assume you try to make a model and you don't have the safety training. You have a 6-month advantage, right? Like if you're trying to make a model, you have a 6-month advantage if you do not do safety training, which is an insane advantage, especially at the speed these things are moving. It's just everybody's doing safety training because they don't want to be on a hook for if they make a model that's incredibly racist and it's like really bad, right? Like you don't want to make a racist AI model that's really bad. And obviously, people are willing to eat the 6-month delay. Now, obviously, OpenAI is probably a little bit on the exception here. It's probably closer to like maybe like a month or two. Like it's probably much shorter than 6 months. Just OpenAI is being very cautious because their model's the one in all of the news, right? And so much smaller players are able to move way faster, right? Like if you look at basically all of open source has kind of been able to catch up to GPT-4 level, and OpenAI hasn't really made a breakthrough, right? Like you can call O1 a breakthrough. In my opinion, it really isn't because of the expense, but like, you know, like they're not really making breakthroughs in terms of performance yet. They had the one breakthrough, which was Ilya being like, wait, we can just make bigger models. And then it's working for them, and now they're like, okay, well, test time scaling, go. Right? And so this is just like, okay, cool. You're just trying to throw stuff at the wall, and sometimes it's working, but you're effectively using the fact you have infinite money to solve all of your technical problems, right? Like, okay, your models are more expensive than just hiring a person. Like, what's the point, right? Now, of course, there's extra cost of hiring and whatnot, but like, you know, the models are getting expensive, at least on the OpenAI end. And like, on the topic of money, OpenAI did just get a massive investment round, right? Like they just got a massive like, hey, here's a bunch of money. I believe it was like what, $6 billion in investments plus $4 billion credit line, right? Because they got $6 billion investment, and then they're like, oh, let's get another $4 billion. Like they have so much capex right now. They're almost certainly going to spend it on GPUs and a little bit more talent, but it's probably going to be GPUs. I think because right now OpenAI is very dependent on Microsoft, right? They're very dependent on Microsoft GPUs. And so if Microsoft cuts them off, they're done. They're cooked, right? And obviously, I don't think Microsoft will cut them off because this is Microsoft's big investment. They're like I've been getting notifications on Outlook because you know my university uses Outlook for a bunch of stuff. That's like, hey, if you're opening a link, try using Edge. I don't even have Edge installed on my phone, but it's like it's a GPT-4 powered browser. Like Microsoft is really invested in OpenAI, in their branding and whatnot, and like I don't think they're going to cut them off, but OpenAI, I think they're just going to buy a ton of extra hardware because they're also, yeah, they're also very cash negative. So I believe they're bleeding like $5 billion a year. Like it's actually kind of insane. And so this entire massive investment is like 2 years of runway for them, which 2 years is a long time in the AI space. Don't get me wrong, it's a very long time. But like, you know, you only have it's like 2 years of runway, which is like really low. Like if you compare it to Google could just be like, all right, we're going to use more GPUs. Like, oh, Google Cloud customers, your price went up. Use less of our GPUs. We'll use it now. Or they'll just use more, or they'll just continue using crazy numbers of TPUs and whatnot. It's like, oh, Google search will turn down some of the computational efficiency. It'll be worse, but oh, bigger trading run, right? Google has Slack in their compute, and that Slack is what they use for Google Cloud. And now what they're able to do is they're just able to do very large training runs. And so if you actually look, right, because they announced Gemini 1.5 Pro at Google I/O, right? And it's been like 5-6 months. And like they're just making it cheaper now, right? Because you have Gemini Flash, like Gemini 1.5 Flash 8B, right? They even published the model size, it's 8B. It's like, and they have 90% cost reduction context caching. And it's like 10 cents per million tokens input regularly. But if you cache the context, it's like 1 cent per million tokens of input. Like that is truly insane, right? Because if you have like a textbook bot, right? Like if you have like the same information, like if you have like a LLM that's an expert in like one specific field and you like feed it an entire textbook, because it's Gemini, you can just do that. It's Gemini. It's an amazing model for that. It'll cost you 1 cent per request you do, which is insanely cheap, assuming you have like a million token textbook. Right? It is so cheap. And obviously output is there. But like if you're having a million tokens going in per request, your output's also, and it's a very cheap model, right? It's like 15 cents per million output. Don't quote me on that. It's probably 15 cents per million output. Like, and each person's probably gonna be using like what, 500 tokens. Let's assume each person is using like a full like 10,000 tokens or something. Like, that's still a tiny amount. Like the biggest cost is always your input for that, and your input now is dirt cheap. Like I believe this is the cheapest way if you're trying to do like that type of thing, right? And so Google is now the king of price, right? Like the price war has been reached to the point where it's like, hey, you want to use Gemini, which is like one of the leading edge closed source models. Of course, this is Flash 8B. It's not going to be a 1.5 Pro, right? But it's a really cheap model for this type of stuff. Like this is like, this is effectively the Claude 3 haiku of the Gemini series, and it's like, oh my god, it's so good. And so you have OpenAI being like, all right, let's just throw more money at the problem. And Google's like, okay, we have the GPUs, let's optimize this, let's build stuff. And like Google, like from everything that's going on right now, Google actually seems like a way more lean company when it comes to LLMs, right? Like OpenAI got them like moving, right? And I think like now Google is like releasing stuff, right? Like NotebookLM recently became huge on Twitter. It's been around for a while. But like Google's like releasing stuff. They have the Flash 8B. It's like actually kind of insane, right? Like Google is moving fast, and OpenAI is not. Right? I think what happened. Okay, so this is a little bit of a conspiracy theory for me, and it's not. And I think it's like extremely unfounded. But I think OpenAI released GPT 3.5 via ChatGPT in December 2022 to try to pollute the data set of the internet, so that when people were training, because they already had a data set of GPT-4 already, like they were ready to go. I think they did that to pollute the data set. And so then when people realized, oh, wait, this is incredibly good technology, they were like, okay, you can't train a better model because the internet's polluted with GPT 3.5. This is a conspiracy theory for me. This is almost certainly not true. But like now, like the internet was kind of polluted with GPT 3.5 quality like stuff, and it's like we have better models now. Like Llama 3 8B, not even 3.1, 3 8B is way better than 3.5, and it's way cheaper, and it's like just better. And it's like, okay, cool. But what you also have going on here is because open source is caught up to GPT-4, there's no, like synthetic data, you kind of have to like have truly good synthetic data generation, right? And it's because previously what open source was able to do is just, hey, GPT-4 outputs, go, cool, we can train better models now. Obviously, a ton of people didn't do that because Llama 3 is not GPT-4 synthesized. But like the internet, because it has so much GPT there, when you train a model on it, you're going to get a bunch of GPT-isms out, right? And so I think a ton of the models are actually hitting a similar point because OpenAI was the first to release their models, because they're full of GPT-isms, because, you know, it's OpenAI's models. A ton of the other models are going to have GPT-isms because the internet has a ton of GPT-isms, right? Because OpenAI released first. And so you have sort of like OpenAI just kind of like, they started by releasing a ton of stuff, but I think they just ran out because they had a bunch of stuff in the pipeline ready to go, like 3.5, because like, okay, GPT 3.5 Turbo, which was used on ChatGPT, is, as far as I know, just an instruct-tuned GPT 3.5, right? It's the instruct-tuned version. And in GPT-4, again, it's just instruct-tuned, right? And so I think OpenAI, they just kind of had this stuff of like, let's just make the models bigger. And they made the models bigger, and it's just like, oh, they kind of ran out of ideas. It's just, oh, let's distill it down. Oh, let's add omnimodal capabilities, and then not release it because of safety fears. And it's like, they're just kind of being hamstrung by safety. And they were kind of in a similar position to Google when they were back in like the Palm days, right? Like Palm 2, right? And those models, like Google's being hamstrung by safety, right? Like you remember that story before ChatGPT launched, like back in 2022, of the Google employee who was fired because he thought that Palm 2 was like a sentient AI, right? Like, obviously, we know now, no chance that's the case. But like, you know, like this is the type of stuff that was happening at Google. It's like safety was like holding them down. And now that OpenAI has broken a ton of these like safety boundaries, Google's like, okay, let's just do it. Now, of course, Google also had more safety boundaries because when OpenAI does stuff, people are like, oh my god, AI is going to take over. And when Google does stuff, people like point at the weaknesses, and it's like kind of insane. And so Google they just build now, and they're so lean and so good, fast, and it's like really nice. And then also in OpenAI news, and the last one for today, this is a really big OpenAI episode, I'm terribly sorry. It's the new Whisper, right? They've released a brand new Whisper model for transcription. Of course, I think this is probably the last open source thing they're ever going to release. This might be because they're going for profit, and it's like, hey, look, we're still doing open source, guys, look. And it's like, okay, come on. You're just like this is clearly, like, you're just releasing stuff just for the sake of it. Like, cool. And so they've kind of done all of this, and I think I'm just going to end OpenAI segment here at this today, because it's like, that's basically it. Like, they're doing stuff, but it's not super cool. And I guess I've also talked about the Google stuff this week as well. Now I'm going to move on to the NVIDIA model, right? The the NVLM, right? So they claim this is GPT-4 level, it's a frontier class, it's multimodal, right? And so this is like really good, right? It's like a cool model from NVIDIA. Of course, I still don't think this model is going to be truly at the level, and like for my testing, it's not truly fully at that level, but it's still a really impressive model. And I think this is purely just an ad for NVIDIA GPUs, as NVIDIA tends to do. Right? Like NVIDIA's not trying to build the best models. They're trying to sell GPUs to all the best model builders. And so if they're like, hey, look at the models you can train on NVIDIA GPUs, everybody already knows NVIDIA GPUs are the way, right? And the people who don't, they're on Google TPU, which is better, right? Of course, you can't actually buy a TPU, so if you're trying to do a massive training run, like Google won't let you, like Google will not let OpenAI use TPU. I'll just leave it at that, right? But like NVIDIA's like, look at the models you can train on our GPUs, look at how good they are. And it's like, it's a cool model. Like they're contributing to open source because open source lets them sell more NVIDIA GPUs. And because, like, let's face it, for the past while, open source has built themselves on top of NVIDIA GPUs because CUDA was actually good, right? Like, I know ROCm from AMD is there. I know Intel has their own thing, but like, come on. We're all on NVIDIA GPUs. We're all stuck on NVIDIA for the next while. Unless Google, and then you have TPU, which is just better, right? Like, it's just the thing is like, it's just an ad for NVIDIA GPUs. And it's like, it's a cool model, but like, you know, ad for NVIDIA GPUs. And now we get to Meta, right? And I don't want to really talk about this stuff because you have SAM 2.1, which is the new segmentation model, where you can just feed it the video and you can just like click, hey, I want to segment this, and it will like outline the person or like the object for you, and you can like track it over time, and like it's really cool, right? Then you have the new movie gen model, right? So we'll start with the segmentation model because I never actually talked about segment anything yet, and this week's tutorial is going to be on segment anything and doing like green screen with it. Obviously, I'm not doing it for this podcast, but for that video, it will be like artificial green screen via segment anything. And so, in essence, it's a segment anything is a model that's really good for image tasks, right? Because it's a clear image understanding, and you can be like, hey, I have this like video of like a person of like a soccer field. I want to segment that soccer ball. Cool. Now I know where the soccer ball is at all times in the video. Now I can track the soccer ball. And because I know the camera and I know the size of the pitch of the soccer field, cool. Now I know exactly like where the soccer ball is on the field at all times. And it's like really cool tech for that, right? Obviously, it's not as good as what I've said, right? But like you can use this for like really nice tracking. Because like all you need is a video feed and like the position of the camera. And then there you have it. You kind of know where objects are now. Now, obviously, you don't know depth, right? You don't know if it's a small object close or large or far. But given context of like where other objects are, you can then like get that information from like one camera feed, which is incredibly cool, right? Like you can get a ton of this information from one camera feed, and then you can like export it and put it into other tasks and whatnot. And like so you can use SAM as like one part of a larger like image or data orchestration set, right? Because what you could potentially do is get like Momo to like say where all the people are in a photo, in a video, sorry. At like the first like few frames of video, and you can get segment anything to like segment those people across the video, and then you can automatically remove them via green screen. And so what you're able to do is you're able to have like a full machine learning green screen thing that you have done no training for. You can have this run on any camera setup. You can do all of that. Now, of course, I know other stuff like YOLO or whatnot can do this already, but like you have a whole pipeline now that you can then feed into other VLMs, right? Like you can have Momo. Like for example, you can have like an AI camera assistant, and it can always have access to a tool that's like, hey, this person I want to, or like they, like you have access to a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like the segment anything is a really cool model, and you can use it as part of a larger orchestration of models, and it's like, yeah, it's just really, really cool. And I love this type of research, right? And then you also have the movie generator, right? So Meta's entered the race, competing against Sora and Veo. Is it Veo or Veo? I don't remember the Google name one. But like, cool. And they said they might open source it, which would be incredibly cool. It's just I don't hold my hope out for Meta open sourcing an image generator because they tend to not, because obviously they're scared of safety implications. Right? Like safety is slowing everybody down. Right? Like AI safety is kind of the thing that's like making like slowing everybody down. Right? Like if you compare like what Black Forest Labs is doing, where they don't really care about safety and they just say go for it, like their models are really good. They don't have to worry about safety. They're better than the new Stable Diffusion. They're better than a whole bunch of stuff. They're beating out the closed source image generation models that people actually released, because obviously GPT-4o's image generation is much better, but again, not released, right? But they're beating out all of that because they're not really caring about the safety. And again, they have a new model, 1.1 Pro, that's again very good. It was Blueberry. So if you've heard stuff about the Blueberry image generation model and you thought, oh, maybe it's that DALL-E 4, no, that's Flux 1.1 Pro, and it's a pretty good image generation model. It's like 4 cents per image, I believe, and it's like really good, really consistent. It can do a lot, but they don't have to worry about safety, right? And we know they didn't worry about safety because when Twitter, I guess X, put it in Grok, so in Grok you can like ask it, hey, can you make an image? And Twitter also doesn't care about safety. XAI doesn't care about safety. We know that because Grok is not really a safety tuned model. They're moving very fast, right? And so they put it on the platform, and now you can get AI generated images of like celebrities doing stuff, right? And so this really came to a head when like Donald Trump did like, hey, Taylor, here's an AI generated image of Taylor Swift endorsing me. Obviously, no politician should ever do that. Like, I'm not gonna get into politics, but like that's kind of insane. But like, they move really fast by ignoring safety, and they're moving faster than everybody else because they ignored safety, right? Because yeah, like Grok 2, I'm pretty sure they did like near zero safety training on it. BFL's like Flux, I'm pretty sure there's near zero safety training on it. Like they're moving faster by not having safety training, and because they aren't lobotomizing these models with safety training, they're ending up better. Because DALL-E 4, if they ever releases, will always be safety trained. And because of that, it will always be worse than a non-safety trained version in terms of image generation. Because the model's being extra careful to not make like bad content. And so you effectively have safety tuning being like, hey, let's make the models dumber so we don't get sued. And then you have the groups that are not doing safety training being like, hey, let's just go fast so we can like make better models. And it's like, I think this will be really interesting. I think the non-safety training guys will win. They will always win. And because like BFL just does not have to worry about getting sued because they're in Germany, right? And it's like, yeah, cool, amazing. And then also nobody's suing Twitter over this. Because the thing about this, right, is if you sue people for, like, for example, badly tuned, like bad safety for AI models, and then you lose the suit, that sets bad precedent. That's really bad for the people, right? Like the reason Taylor Swift didn't sue Donald Trump over those AI generated images is because if she loses, and like Donald Trump has a massive legal budget, now obviously do I think he would have won the case? Probably not. But the problem is if she wins, cool, nothing's really changed. But except she got some money from Donald Trump and potentially like hampered his like presidential campaign. But if she loses, that's a massive blowback to like any deep faking law, right? And so it's like the risk of losing is so high that you don't want to fight, and it's like really like in a strange legal zone because the only people suing are the ones where losing doesn't actually matter, right? Because and even then, like losing can matter. It's the people who don't realize that losing is really, really bad, and it's like there's a whole. It's like. Obviously, AI image generation should like respect copyright of artists, right? I'm not saying it shouldn't, but like, if you have a case where the judge rules, oh yeah, the AI is actually transformative fair use, like, come on, that's actually really insane. Because like, I don't think that's an insane take, but like, guess what? You've now legalized AI as a metric for erasing copyright like forever, right? And it's like, if you win, it's like. Yeah, cool, you won the case and now it has to go up a layer, right? Because obviously the companies have a ton of money and they're just going to stop at a layer where they win. And obviously you're going to stop at a layer where the like artists are going to stop at a layer where they win. But they just have less legal firepower than the companies, right? And so it's like, if you have, and so you're kind of just getting into like, this is also leading to a rift in AI companies where you have the ones that are like constantly getting sued by a bunch of people, not really releasing, and you have the one and doing a ton of safety training so they stop getting sued, And the ones that are not getting sued, they're moving fast and they're just kind of starting to win. Because, again, BFL is a German company. They're releasing this all via like the internet, and it's like, cool, you're German. American law doesn't apply there. And so American artists can't sue them, and so they're able to move fast. But because OpenAI is an American company doing everything in America, American artists can sue them. And so they're not going to release DALL-E 4 or GPT-4 image generation, because if they do, they're going to get sued. And they have to slow down and ensure that it's safe and it's like tuned for that. Meta is not going to release any image generator because they're 100% getting sued on that. Right? Like text generators, it's like, maybe the suing is not really happening. But with image generators, they're 100% getting sued for that. And because they're 100% getting sued for that, they're not going to release it because they don't want a lawsuit. And so, yeah, and then you have like BFL and Twitter. I'm surprised that Twitter didn't get sued for allowing access to BFL, but like the access to Flux, like BFL's Flux. But like, maybe they have. I haven't really kept too much track of that. But like, yeah, like nobody really has an eye on XAI as like a model company. Whereas people have their eyes on OpenAI. People have their eyes on Meta and Google. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to leave that podcast there for today. Please like and subscribe. I am currently 2 subscribers away from 100 subscribers. And so if I can hit 100 subscribers, that'd be great. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you all have a great time. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.